Hello, this is Crab Champions. Crab Champions is a game where you play as a crab, and you shoot things. Now, of course, I am going to go into it in further detail, but first, I have an intro to roll. Crab Champions is a game where you play as a crab and you shoot all these different enemies, and as you're going through the game, you're basically going in these different runs. Each run is divided by islands. Each island has a various array of enemies for you to clear out, and as you go through, you get different pickups to upgrade your crab, upgrade your weapons, upgrade pretty much anything that you would need to grow stronger and to deal with the harder enemies. Each island has a typical type of mode you're going to have. It's either going to be an arena or a horde mode. In arena, you basically just clear out all the enemies. As soon as you clear all the enemies, the island is over, and then you move on to the next. In horde, it's basically the same thing, except in horde, you're just thrown with an onslaught of enemies you need to survive, usually about for 40 seconds, and once you survive the horde, then, get your upgrades, move on to the next island, and so forth. When you get to the end of what is called a biome, there are 3 biomes, by the way, you will fight against a boss. These bosses can be very challenging, have really cool flashy moves, and honestly can give you a real run for your money. Some of these bosses are very difficult to deal with, but are a ton of fun and satisfying to clear. As I said, you can get tons of different upgrades as you go through these islands. What's really big in accordance to these upgrades is the shop. The shop comes up 2 times per biome, and this is where the upgrades really start to shine here. As you fight enemies, you'll pick up crystals, these purple crystals. These crystals can be used at the shop to buy upgrades when you're there, and honestly, I think that the upgrades you get from the shop are sometimes can be the most vital, because every once in a while, you'll find some of the rarest upgrades in the shop. They will be expensive though. The shop will usually also house some healing, possibly an extra chest or 2 to give you some more further upgrades. Sometimes we'll also have some big crystals for you to shoot to give you a little bit of a boost to your crystals for the shop in case you may want it. And every once in a while, you'll find these totems that come up. These totems can be found around the levels, as well as, again, here in the shop. These are also big on upgrades because usually these totems will allow you to forfeit something of yours for a random pickup. Sometimes they'll want you to forfeit some of your health, sometimes they'll want you to fork up some crystals, but these are usually a gamble as it's almost never a guarantee that you will get a pickup from them. Coming back to the bosses for a little bit, I'm sure you noticed that I've used a couple different types of weapons in some of the clips you've seen. Weapons are actually gained in a pretty cool way. So when you defeat bosses, you will get these keys. You will get 1 key from the first 2 bosses, and then the final boss at the end of the 3rd biome, you will get 2 keys. For every 3 keys you get, you can give to this totem in the main hub, and that will give you a brand new weapon, a weapon that you can take into the start of any run that you wish. There are several different weapons. I believe there's about 10 or 12 in total. Each weapon tends to have its own strength and weakness. For example, one of my personal favorites, the twin double barrel shotguns. These are great in terms of both your damage and your fire rate, as one shot from one of these can pretty much one hit kill the regular crab enemies. So using this in single player is really great because the damage is so good and it has a pretty decent fire rate as well. But then you have something like the crossbow, which fires like a row of arrows instead of just 1 arrow. This is pretty okay if you're going to play in multiplayer and you want to be somebody who can easily clear out like a whole row of enemies. But in terms of single player, this really isn't all that great because it spreads your shots out. So this means that your damage is pretty much being spread out. And it's not really good for bosses or, beefier enemies. Then, of course, you also have this standard weapon, which is this rifle that is completely full auto. And then my most recent weapon that I just got, the minigun, which is actually also pretty fun. It's about the same as the auto rifle, but it's got a larger magazine and, of course, a better fire rate, but the shots do spread a little bit more. However, it's insanely fun to use, and I find the damage output to be good enough for single player, definitely. I should now talk about the movement of the game. So the control of this game is so much fun. One thing that I really like about this is that the amount of freedom of movement you have is incredible. I'm sure you already noticed in some of these clips, if you jump and aim down sights, you will be slowed down. Time will slow down and you'll be able to shoot in this kind of like bullet time type of thing. But again, you have these different dashes and a really cool jump and jump dash. It's so much fun to move around. It's a really strange combination of like just a regular old third-person shooter combined with a high momentum shooter. Now, you're probably thinking, Josh, what happens when you get to the end of a complete run and run through all 3 biomes? Well, you can either take that victory and celebrate, or you can keep everything you've gained, which means all your crystals, all your pickups, upgrades, and things like that, and you can start from the very beginning, from the very first island, but with harder enemies. And then you can, of course, try to get through a complete 3 biome run again. And what's really cool is that this is where the real challenge comes in. I mean, a straight run can already be difficult on its own, but then you add in the fact that you're going into another full 3 biome run with even harder enemies, and some of the attacks are as well just insane. Like, they do way more damage. There's a lot more enemies in general. So I think the real challenge just comes from looping runs over and over and over again. It can be really fun to do when you can pull these harder islands off, for sure. And it's really satisfying to clear these harder bosses. And all this super fun gameplay is, of course, complemented by some awesome sounding music. Just music that you can just sit and vibe to all day pretty much. And also the graphics and performance of the game is actually really good. You can tell that there's a lot of effort and just general passion going into the development of this game, and I can't wait to see where it keeps going. The game is on Steam if you want to go check it out, and it's only about $10, and I believe it's actually on sale right now for like $8.50. Now, it did just release only several days ago, and it is also in early access, but there's a pretty decent beefy roadmap actually, and I think that as future updates come out, the game's gonna get a lot bigger. Actually, there are updates already coming out. There was a patch update just patching up a couple things that came out. So it's really cool to see that the developer is making sure that they're keeping an eye on the game and wanting to bring updates. All in all, I think Crab Champions is honestly my favorite indie game that I've ever played in recent years. And it's also been a long while where I just felt compelled to buy a game pretty much right away and try it out and just take a shot in the dark at it, and absolutely loved it. Pay the $10 for it, give it a try. If you don't like it in that first 2 hours, Steam will typically allow you to refund games if you have less than 2 hours of playtime and it hasn't been, 2 weeks since you purchased it. Using gift money on the games usually will not allow this refund to take place for some reason though, or at least that's what I found in my experience. But if you want a really fun game that kind of combines a couple different, shooter game genres or nuances, I guess, and you just want a really fun game to maybe play up with some friends every once and then I really don't think you can go wrong with Crab Champions. So now that I'm done rambling about a video game, why don't I give you a little bit of an update? Hi-Fi Rush video. Yeah, still probably not happening anytime soon. I do have a bigger video planned for some time, and maybe by the end of May, I believe. As always, make sure to subscribe and turn on your notifications to know when I get a video out next. Also, of course, another way to receive various updates from me is you can join my Discord server, which there'll be a link to down in the description of this video. You can of course get notifications for when I upload from there, but I also tend to put up some other various updates as I feel necessary. I will usually also put some updates up on the community part of my channel here on YouTube. As always, keep it cool, take care of yourselves, make sure you hydrate, Jesh out. I'll see you in the next one. It's basically Crab Brave the video game. There, I said it. Are you happy?